It all began on a quiet Monday morning in Nairobi. Phones inside a major betting company suddenly started ringing nonstop. Screens were flashing red. Account balances were dropping rapidly. Millions of Kenyan shillings were disappearing in seconds. At first, the technicians thought it was a system error, but it wasn't. Someone was stealing from them. And the name that would soon shake the entire betting industry was Seth Mwabe. No one in the company had ever heard of him before. He wasn't a famous hacker, not a wealthy businessman, and not a celebrity gambler, just an ordinary young man living a quiet life in Kenya. But behind that ordinary face was a mind that had been studying betting systems for years. Seth Mwabe had one obsession: beating the system. Most gamblers lose money every day on betting platforms. The companies always have the advantage. The algorithms, the odds, the timing. Everything is designed so that the house wins in the long run. Seth knew this, and instead of gambling like everyone else, he decided to learn how the system worked. Night after night, he spent hours studying betting patterns, analyzing odds changes, and observing how the platform processed transactions. He wasn't looking for lucky predictions. He was looking for a weakness. For months, nothing happened. The system seemed perfect, until one night, he noticed something strange. There was a delay, a very small delay between when bets were placed and when the system updated the odds. To most people, it was invisible, just milliseconds. But to Seth, it was an opportunity. If he could place bets at the exact moment before the odds updated, he could lock in winning positions that the system hadn't corrected yet. It was risky, extremely risky, but Seth had already made his decision. He built a simple automated script that could place bets faster than any human ever could. While normal players clicked buttons manually, Seth's system was already reacting in milliseconds. The first test was small, just a few hundred shillings. The bet went through. Seconds later, he won, not because he predicted the game correctly, but because the odds were outdated when his bet was accepted. He tried again, and again, and again. Within days, Seth Mwabe had discovered something incredible. The system didn't detect the exploit. Money began flowing into his betting account. Thousands became tens of thousands. Tens of thousands became hundreds of thousands. At first, Seth was cautious. He withdrew small amounts so that no one would notice. But as time passed, his confidence grew. Soon, he wasn't betting hundreds anymore. He was betting millions. Inside the betting company's headquarters, alarms started appearing in the financial department. The system was showing unusual winning streaks. Accounts that should statistically lose were winning constantly. One account stood out more than the rest: Seth Mwabe. At first, the company thought he was simply lucky. But when analysts looked deeper into the data, they noticed something impossible. Seth wasn't gambling. He was timing the system. Every bet he placed happened during that tiny delay window before odds updates. It was like watching someone pick a lock that the company never knew existed. Executives quickly called an emergency meeting. "How much have we lost?" one of them asked. The answer shocked the room. Millions of Kenyan shillings had already disappeared, and the losses were increasing every hour. The company immediately froze several suspicious accounts. But Seth had already anticipated something like this. He had created multiple betting accounts and spread his activity across different wallets. By the time the company started blocking accounts, the damage had already been done. Money had been withdrawn, transferred, moved, hidden. The betting company contacted cybersecurity experts to investigate what had happened. Engineers began scanning their platform for vulnerabilities, and eventually they found it: the delay. That tiny delay between bet placement and odds update had been exploited perfectly. But by the time they patched the system, Seth Mwabe had vanished. No more bets, no more withdrawals, just silence. Rumors started spreading online. Some people called him a genius. Others called him a criminal. Gamblers across Kenya began talking about the mysterious man who had beaten a betting company at its own game. But the story wasn't over yet. Investigators started tracing financial transactions linked to Seth's accounts. The betting company wanted answers, and they wanted their money back. Meanwhile, Seth Mwabe had already changed his lifestyle. Friends who knew him before started noticing something different: new clothes, expensive electronics, a lifestyle that didn't match his past. People started asking questions. Where did the money come from? How did he suddenly become rich? But Seth rarely talked about it. He kept a low profile, avoiding attention and staying away from the spotlight. Yet in the digital world, nothing stays hidden forever. The investigation continued for months. Experts reconstructed the timeline of every single bet he had placed. They analyzed server logs, transaction histories, IP addresses, and device fingerprints. Piece by piece, the puzzle began to form. Seth Mwabe had not simply gotten lucky. He had studied the system, identified a weakness, and exploited it with precision. Eventually, authorities were informed about the case. What started as a technical exploit was now becoming a legal investigation. Was Seth a hacker, a fraudster, or just someone who used the system better than anyone else? The debate spread across social media and news outlets. Some people believed betting companies deserved it. After all, they profit from players losing money every day. Others argued that exploiting a system to steal millions was still a crime. But one thing was certain. Seth Mwabe had exposed a flaw that cost a betting company millions and forced the entire industry to rethink its security. Betting platforms across Kenya began upgrading their systems. Delays were eliminated. Algorithms were redesigned. Security monitoring became stricter because of one man, Seth Mwabe. Even today, many people still debate the story. Was he a criminal mastermind, a brilliant strategist, or simply a man who understood the system better than the people who built it? Whatever the truth may be, his story remains one of the most mysterious tales in Kenya's betting world. A reminder that sometimes the biggest victories don't happen on the football field. They happen behind a computer screen and in the game between the player and the house. Sometimes the player wins,